I'm Andrea Immer Robinson, and I'm a master sommelier. Exploring wine and food is my passion, and it's my life's work. As a wine and food book author, TV host, trained chef, and educator, it's my privilege to share with you the fun, people, and places, and the delicious pairings that make our lives and our planet a better place. Welcome to Quench from my home in wine country. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Quench and welcome to Earth Month, which, of course, is a celebration of the thing that we all rely on and love and are so proud to be able to support, which is the planet. So great to have you. And I hope you were able to tune in to last month's episode. We were celebrating Women's History Month, so I got to meet with Katie Jackson Hartford Murray from Jackson Family Wines. We were celebrating the fact that they are sponsors of the WNBA, which, as everybody knows, has taken the pro sports world by storm. But we also talked about the March Madness and the incredible excitement around the women's final, well, all the finals for sure. And I think I'll just say that now that they've had the WNBA draft with some of the seniors who were coming out of that, I'm pleased to hear that where my alma mater was in Dallas, Texas, has picked up Paige Beckers from the Yukon Huskies. So she will be with the Dallas, I believe they're called the Wings. So that's exciting. She's also going to play in the Unrivaled League, which is an off-season 3-on-3 league owned by two former Hall of Fame WNBA players that's having a great deal of success. So super excited about that. Great to have you with us. And celebrating Earth Day, we have none other than Anna Brittain from Napa Green, which is an incredibly important initiative for us here in the Napa Valley, but also really for the whole wine world, because there is a big effort towards leadership in action and inspiration and sharing with other wine regions, because everywhere that grows wine grapes and fine wine grapes is a little bit different. So Anna, first of all, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's fun.
It's so great to have you. And she was asking me, what about wardrobe? And I said, well, keep it casual. But this woman is the most beautiful wearer of green.
Tell me more.
So I decided that she would be the green vegetation and I would be the compost. And so the two of us together, we do great things together. And so that's what this episode is going to accomplish for us. But first of all, just explain how Napa Green got started, and then we're going to talk about kind of the main elements that Napa Green focuses on to help guide this wine region towards climate action and towards resiliency.
Well, it's a fun question right now because Napa Green just turned 21.
Whoa.
We're legal.
Whoa.
We can drink.
We can drink. All right, I better start opening this while you explain. So go ahead.
So Napa Green actually started originally under the auspices of the Napa Valley Vintners, which I'm sure everyone knows is kind of an association of most of the wineries here in Napa Valley.
Yes.
And it was originally focused on the health of the watershed, preventing erosion and sediment runoff. The river was having some challenges, and they really wanted to help growers kind of get ahead of regulations and prevent erosion and sediment runoff. I promise I won't go too in depth. So fast forward 2008, I actually was a consultant that helped develop the winery program. So that came on board.
Okay, so it started with vineyards, then it went to wineries. Because that's so interesting, and I think it's important. Not everybody understands that there's so many elements to sustainability and climate action and planet health. Well beyond inputs in the vineyard and activity actually in the vines. So continue. So you talked about the winery program.
And we'll talk about whole systems. I'm all about whole systems approaches.
Yes.
But so winery came on board, and then in 2015, the Napa Valley Vintners set that big goal many people heard about probably, to have all of their members involved in Napa Green. And so I came back as a consultant to help with that growth and help make that happen.
Awesome.
And then in 2019, we became our own nonprofit. So we spun off from the Napa Valley Vintners to kind of diversify funding and still grow and evolve. Everything has to keep growing and evolving, whether we want it to or not.
Yes, indeed.
And that was the point at which we actually completely redeveloped our vineyard program. Kind of those erosion sediment measures had become a regulatory standard, which is great. Evolution, compliance becomes the standard.
Right.
And so we completely redeveloped the vineyard program, relaunched it in 2022, and it is focused specifically on regenerative viticulture and climate action and social equity.
Well,
we can talk more about what all those things mean.
So let's talk about that because first of all, I'm showing the sort of main areas of focus. As you say, talking about evolution, we've got for sure the Climate Smart Winery.
Yeah.
That's going to be something that we get into quite a bit more with some of the wines that we're featuring tonight because we are sipping and pairing this evening. But we also have the regenerative vineyard focus, and I think we'll get to where we explain exactly what that means. Yeah. And then I'm excited because the Rise Symposium is something that's being hosted now is this the third year?
This is the third time.
Okay, and that's an acronym, so tell us what Rise stands for.
Few people realize that's an acronym. Huzzah on knowing that. It stands for resilience, innovation, sustainability, and empowerment, which is a huge part of Rise. So we do regular training and education every year, but Rise is our big world-class symposium that you've been involved with from the very beginning.
Yes.
That we launched in 2022. It has 65 speakers, hopefully around 700 or so guests across the 6 events. And it's really unique, and we're going to talk about this. It's really unique in being organized around our 6 pillars of sustainable wine leadership. So it's a series of 6 half-day events, and each one focuses on one of these pillars. So you can kind of choose your priority and your adventure of what you want to tune into. They're all interconnected, which we'll talk about. Of course. So we're making those connections, but it's a chance to dig in on water or people or climate action overall. And I know we'll talk more about that.
Right. So with that in mind, these are the pillars. And I think we're going to talk in some pretty significant depth here, but I wanted to put these up for people to understand that there is the focus on water efficiency and savings. And it's maybe something that we take way too much for granted. Water and clean water and the access to it readily available. Just can you speak real quickly to that?
I mean, water is so foundational and so interconnected to so many things, including your water use is connected to your energy use because of the pumping and treating and heating.
Right.
So it's tied to your money and your energy bills.
Right.
And so, it is, and it's the wine industry relative to other ag sectors doesn't use as much irrigation water, honestly, but still, irrigation is a big water use.
Of course.
You can't get away from it.
Right.
But
and it's actually been a help to us because those vines, even though they don't need a lot of irrigation, because they go down and find their own water, when managed properly, they actually hold a lot of moisture and have been a really great thing for us from a point of carbon sequestration, but also fire resistance because they don't burn easily.
Yeah, they become kind of a firewall. Fire comes up to the vineyard. Not to say it doesn't get damaged.
Yes.
But yeah, absolutely. And so then on the winery side, I'll just say when people, which as you were saying, most people think about the vineyard, maybe not the winery. It's all about cleaning. Sanitizing those tanks, cleaning the floors, the landscaping actually is a big water user. So that is a big focus of ours. Right.
And I think a lot of wineries, and I'm sure quite a few of you that are watching have been to the Napa Valley. And thank you, Linda McDevitt, for noticing or for talking about my commentating at Pebble Beach Food and Wine Festival. I haven't been to that event in such a long time. It was absolutely amazing.
That sounds fun.
And I will tell you that everywhere we went at the Pebble Beach Food and Wine Festival, there was an active composting program. Everything that got served on something that was disposable was compostable, and they had people monitoring where you dropped it because compliance is our biggest problem, right? We all know that we can get something that says it's compostable, but are we doing it? Or we can get something that says it's recyclable, but are we doing it? So I thought that was super cool. And you mentioned the interconnectedness between water and energy. And we've also got waste prevention. That's a big one for me. It bothers me so much how much we throw away. That half of what we're buying in the store is packaging. So I'm really more and more really focused on that. And so I think that's a huge deal. And it is the biggest part of the carbon footprint of a bottle of wine.
Where are we going with this? It is, in fact.
So tell me about that. Supply chain and waste prevention. Everybody says that the carbon footprint of a bottle of wine, or that the lion's share of it, in many instances is the bottle if it's a glass bottle package.
Yes.
So talk about how that fits into this pillar.
Well, this gets to your earlier point that most people are focused on the agricultural opportunities, which are immense, and especially on the vineyard side, that carbon storage, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, is an immense opportunity. But actually, in terms of the carbon footprint of both the vineyard and winery, the lion's share, anywhere from say 40 to 60% of that carbon footprint is due to packaging and distribution alone.
Right.
And glass being typically the heaviest element of that.
Yes.
And you think about it's not just here at the winery, it's where it's manufactured. It has to be shipped to you, the weight of those shipments, the number of shipments, depending how big they are. And then it's you taking it and getting it to your consumer. And again, how many shipments, how heavy are they? So that's where that, I know we've maybe all in the industry been hearing it like too much, but glass lightweighting, packaging lightweighting is huge to reducing the carbon footprint.
And they also say, and I didn't realize this until I looked into it, that it's also the production, because they have to run those furnaces to make the glass at many thousands of degrees 24/7.
Yeah.
And so and that's one of the things that I talked about the last episode with the Jackson family. They have been working with the Furnace of the Future with one of their glass packagers to figure out how to fire glass factories with renewable energy
and electric.
Exactly. Yeah. So lots to look forward to there, which is exciting. But speaking of stuff to look forward to, we're going to talk about a really, really wonderful recent set of announcements about some award winners in the area of sustainability. So this is a California Green Medal Award winner in Shandong, Napa Valley, one of the first, if not the first, bottle fermented sparkling wine producers in Napa Valley. And as you probably know, they are a division of LVMH or Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, because they are a sister brand and originally an offshoot of Moet Chandon Champagne in the Champagne region of France. So talk about the Green Medal. I think you know quite a bit about it.
I do. So I'm in fact on the judging panel, and I'm a pretty vocal member of the judging panel. So this is a statewide award that's given out annually. I think it started in 2015. A whole set of wine industry leaders involved in the judging panel. And there's 4 different areas you can win an award around. So there's environment. See, that's an obvious one. There's community. There's business. There's how you're getting that ROI from all your great green measures. And then there's overarching leadership. So Shandong won this year for their environmental leadership,
which is so cool. So I want to talk about the wine here for a second, and then we'll talk about some of the things that they did that drove their winning of this award. But this is their Blanc de Blanc by the Bay, and so it is from their Carneros vineyards, and Carneros is a sub-appellation that straddles between Napa County and Sonoma County. I think they probably have vineyards on both sides. I know for sure that they have them on both sides. And this is they're absolute leaders in so many initiatives. They also have a great female winemaker. They have a history of great female winemakers, actually.
They got a lot of women working there.
It's a pretty nifty thing. Yeah. And I will say also that as a place to visit in the Napa Valley, it remains to me one of the most accessible. It's open earlier and stays open later than most other places in the Napa Valley. It's such a beautiful environment. They've really, really worked to make every aspect of it pleasant and just so respectful of nature's beauty and the spot that they have. And a long time history of leadership of hospitality. They had fine dining when they started here and still have great food and beverage experiences. And their tasting fees for this sort of entry levels, they're affordable, which is really important.
Not too bad.
So let's toast to their winning.
Cheers to Shandong's award.
And drink this wine. And then I know that one of the things that they have focused on is lightweighting bottles, but what mostly went into their green medal?
Well, there's so many elements of it. So we're really focused especially on near-term achievements. So we're really looking at what have you done lately, basically. And we're also looking for actual metrics, proof of performance. Show us your water use, show us your energy use, show us your emissions reductions. I think one of the biggest things for them, and it makes sense being tied to a French company, is they've really been going all in on regenerative agriculture. And so maybe this is a moment to talk about what that means.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I know we're hearing that term thrown around more and more. It's kind of the new sustainability. So regenerative is really focused on improving soil health and diversity below ground and above ground.
Right.
And so it's things like reduced tillage, reduced herbicide and pesticide use, adding cover crops, adding compost, adding hedgerows and pollinator habitat.
So talk about what cover crops and compost accomplish.
So many things. Really adding a lot of nutrients to the soil. First of all, you're making that little microbiome have a little party under there once
Sort
they're
of like healthy eating helps your gut microbiome, right? So healthy inputs to the land. And you talked about nutrients. People are thinking, well, just add fertilizer. But if you add chemical fertilizer, then the balance aspect of it is complicated, and it maybe doesn't serve as well as Mother Nature's version of fertilizing its own soil.
I mean, there's a few things I can say there. First of all, nitrogen fertilizer, it's a huge emission source.
Right.
It's like 200 times more powerful than CO2.
Right.
So there's that.
So if your local community has like free compost that you can pick up, a lot of communities do, and you're gardening, give that a try. Yeah. If you have room on your property to do your own composting, I've done it when I lived in a place where I had the space. It's fun. Especially if you have kids.
For some people.
It's fun. And it's staggering the difference it makes. If you are using compost in your garden, it's just amazing how great everything tastes and how the plants just they just look happy. They look like the most beautiful place on earth when it's allowed to be itself, which I think Mother Nature kind of does it better than we do. Okay, so I stopped you on compost and
well, I think the main goal of regenerative viticulture, what it boils down to me, is creating a self-regulating system.
Right.
It's a system that needs less inputs, that needs less touch, that when there's a pest or when there's a disease or when there's a frost event or when there's a heat spike, it's better able to self-sustain and weather those events.
Right.
Because of this diversity. The more diversity you have, the more there's elements of it that can fight off the elements you don't want.
Yeah.
When you just have a monoculture, it's way more susceptible to problems. So it really is about creating a whole farm with a healthy immune system, which is what you were getting.
Just like people. So again, we're talking about when we treat ourselves to a balanced diet with a lot of diversity, especially of whole raw.
I need to be better at that.
As those types of foods, but also good sleep, good exercise, good stress management. We are getting a lot closer to where our body is more resilient, and when that bug comes around, it either doesn't get us or it gets us less hard, right? So exactly. I think that's a great sort of element of it. So you talked about the regenerative focus there, and then you also talked about their kind of the biodiversity and the planting of a overall ecosystem, which I was just there literally 2 or 3 days ago.
Me too.
Grabbing this bottle of wine, which I just love. Yeah. And I stopped. I stopped and I turned on my little portable video camera and I did like a cartwheel across over the bridge with the trees because it was just gorgeous. Yeah. And then I looked at the tape after the fact, and the sound. There were so many beautiful birds and animals and insects, and it was just great. Yeah. So, and I'm seeing here also they've got, they're using renewable energy to power the winery, and then a growing fleet of electric vehicles.
Electric tractors. And I should say, so they're going to be speaking at Rise. Each day of Rise, there's a forum asking a critical question. And on April 30th, let me get my dates right, we're going to have a forum asking to till an EV or not to till an EV.
I'm moderating that one.
And Andrea is moderating. Mm-hmm. And so Shandong will be there to talk about electric tractors, and also they've been steadily reducing their tillage.
Which is super exciting. And it's so fun to talk to their viticulturalist, Margarita. She's I don't know. She's just kind of like a
Very
walking
passionate.
bundle of passion and energy. So, so I'm super stoked about that.
Yep.
Talk real quick about we're gonna pair this cheese with the next
great.
wine too.
Great.
But this is my favorite pairing with bottle fermented, like champagne style. That's the method. Second fermentation in the bottle, sparkling wine, which this is. And it is called Euphoria, but it doesn't matter which one it is. This is a sheep's milk aged Gouda. You can get a cow's milk aged Gouda, but if you love this type of wine, then just always have this on hand for emergencies or Wednesdays or whatever have you, because this is delicious. So make sure you give it a try.
Name.
Right?
Euphoria.
Well,
Having some euphoria.
Yeah, and it's spelled E-W-E-phoria because it's the lady sheep that delivered the milk to the creamery to make this beautiful cheese.
I love
and it's really lovely because it's sort of the flavor profile is kind of a little bit caramelized, a little bit buttery, a little bit toasty, and so that really kind of brings in some of the nice toasty elements of the wine, and then you've got those beautiful scrubbing bubbles that cut through the richness of the cheese, so it's like, yeah, it's pretty darn
really good.
delicious. Yeah.
Okay.
So that is, so that's our green medal winner, but we also are you said there were 4 total?
4 of the California Green Medal, yeah.
And we got 3. Meaning the wine industry, right? Or the Napa, or am I getting that wrong?
We got 2. We got Spotswood and Chandon this year.
Okay.
We always have at least one.
Which is because we rock.
Yeah. Yes.
If we do say ourselves,
Yes.
let's cheers to Napa Valley
We
being
do.
really, really good at this.
We rock, Napa rocks.
But, so then we also have, and I just went over there today because they're right in the neighborhood, and borrowed this big bottle, the Spotswood, which has been a leader on, I think of the Novaks, and especially Beth. Her parents originally bought the historic property, and it's stunning. It's another place that's a must do if you come here. But it's sort of like, if there is a certification or a measure that you can be judged on for your commitment to sustainability, she wants it.
Yep.
So this is Beth Novak Milliken.
Yep.
So Spotswood won for what?
Spotswood had already won for their environmental leadership
Wow.
a few years ago, but you do get to reapply every 5 years. And so then they won for the overarching leader award.
Wow.
For all of their leadership across the board. I mean, you bring up one thing you could do, they're doing it. I mean, I was on a panel with Molly the other day, who's their environmental manager, Molly Shepard.
Right.
Among many other hats.
Yes.
And she couldn't even remember all of their certifications.
All
There's
right.
so many.
I've got a list. Well, they're given for a winery that excels in the 3 E's of sustainability. So environmentally sound, socially equitable, and economically viable.
Big right now.
Nothing is sustainable if it makes you go out of business because you can't get a return on investment, which you talked about before. So this mentions that they are regenerative organic certified, which is huge and so important, and such an aspiration for
And Napa Green Vineyards. So they
are
do both.
Napa Green Vineyards, and winery.
Yep.
They are B Corp. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. California Certified Organic Farmers, so that's the organic certification for grape growing that the state that offers, as well as Demeter Certified Biodynamic.
Yep.
International Wineries for Climate Action member. That was founded by Jackson family and the Familia Torres in Spain to really help the whole globe figure out reference points and targets for carbon neutrality and other aspects of sustainability. They're gold level, and good gosh, I don't know, they don't stop.
There's nothing they're not doing.
There's nothing they're not doing. So if you can afford Spotswood Cabernet, cellar that. And if you want a world-class example of Napa Valley Sauvignon Blanc, it's a little bit of a trade-up, but not out of control. And so good, and it actually ages if you want a cellar Sauvignon Blanc, which I've done many times, especially Napa Valley, high quality. Get that wine. They're really great. And then we have, go ahead.
Well, I was going to just say,
Yes.
another thing that makes them exceptional is they're a small family winery. So investing in this so deeply and seeing positive results from it on many different levels. I just have to point that out. That kind of leadership at a small family winery makes it even that much more
absolutely impressive. And it's an all day, every day, pretty much kind of 24/7 thing with the whole team. And so it's very exciting. When I came up to pick up the bottle today, they were very happy to hear about this conversation. And then finally we have this isn't all the green medals, but I had this Magnum of Jordan Cabernet Sauvignon, and I wanted to pull that out because they also won a green medal for community. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so this is where we're kind of looking at the people. You know, this is very foundational. How are you taking care of your own people, and how are you contributing to and being involved in the community? And they have their own foundation. They have a lot of benefits they offer to their employees. I'm telling you, I read so many applications. I can't remember all the specifics, so I'm glad you have them in front of you.
Of course.
But they're doing an immense amount for the community.
Yeah. So they've had for a long time elements of community. I think it really hit a whole new level during COVID, because they were so focused on using the John Jordan Foundation to essentially pay restaurants to make food for first responders and members of the community who needed access to food, because they were not working and not bringing in a paycheck, and therefore how do we get meals for our families if we don't have a big rainy day fund? And so that was a huge thing, because it also, let's keep this in mind, it kept everybody that worked at the restaurant working at the restaurant. So it kept those jobs going, as well as, and all of the purveyors. People weren't charging everything that they would normally charge, but you still can't give away food, because the food has to get paid for and the labor has to get paid for, or you're really not actually accomplishing a community enhancement. So that was a very huge thing. And then lots of relationship to crisis relief during our fires, for people, for displaced animals, and so on. And so many cleft palate care. I mean, just so many different things. And
I have to say too, you can't win any of these awards if you don't have also just overarching environmental leadership. So which they stood out for their community leadership, but they also have incredible environmental leadership.
And it goes on and on. There's 70% of the winery's electricity is generated by solar power. And they have a tiny fraction of their estate property, which is another must visit. It is so gorgeous, and the hospitality there is second to none. But a tiny percentage of it is planted to grapes. It's habitat.
They kept a lot of it wild.
And that's so that the habitat is like the rest of the gut microbiome or the soil microbiome, the habitat of all the animals and the plants. That's how we keep things going in a way that's, again, sustainable. So it's super cool and super fun. And I have to say, I think right now, this Cabernet Sauvignon is flying on Delta Airlines in Delta One. Nice. That's a partner of mine, and it's been a big investment for the airline, because it's a lot of money for a wine to put on a plane. But it is well invested in a winery that does so much for the community and for the environment. So stoked for that. So if you're flying somewhere for your next vacation on Delta One, hopefully you'll be able to drink this wine.
I love it.
So very fun.
This reminded me of something.
Yes.
I'm going back like 15 minutes, but we were talking about cover crops and the benefit of cover crops. We talked about nutrients, but we didn't get to water infiltration and water retention.
Right.
Sorry.
Right, because the water, like you were talking about erosion before, if the soil isn't exactly the way it needs to be, the water just runs away anyway.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
So when you have the right plants there, it's actually allowing for that water capture and that water infiltration and that water retention. There's a factoid many have probably heard: for every 1% increase in your soil organic matter, you're increasing your water retention by 20 to 25,000 gallons per acre. And I was reminded of that because you were also talking about the wildlands, and I think a lot of people don't know that a healthy forest is also one of the most critical water capture and storage and groundwater retention.
Right.
So some people might think like, oh, they're using a bunch of water. They're actually critical to capturing and maintaining that water. So you're having trees and having healthy forests you're taking care of doesn't just reduce your fire risk, which of course we are very cognizant of here.
Yeah.
But it's also actually really helping with that moisture in the soil, which also helps with your fire risk.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because honestly, everyone's cognizant of fire risk anymore.
Yeah.
If you
LA,
think of look at Los Angeles, but also look at all of the, much of North Carolina this year in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
That's
Provence a few years ago.
exactly.
Chile.
Canada. I mean, it's not just a west coast of the United States thing. So it's across the country. Texas has had major fires in the last year as well, and I think there's one that's burning right now. I think it's maybe petering out. But and you mentioned trees and the holding of water. It makes me think of we've probably, if you have kids, you've seen The Lion King. Those baobab trees. The whole thing is that they hold so much water.
Yeah, that's true.
because those savannas and those types of environments are super dry a lot of the time. Yeah. Okay, so the green medal, super exciting. But let's turn our attention now to the Napa Green Award, because we're going to taste a wine from an award-winning winery. It is not one of their Napa wines, but it's a foot forward that's available nationally. And so I wanted to showcase the Pine Ridge Chenin Blanc Viognier, because this is not one for which they won the award, because they make it from fruit that's sourced in other locations. But it's a great wine. It's extremely affordable, and it is a way for you to support another company that is really doing it right by the environment. One of the big things they did was also lightweighting their bottles in a big way. So this is the Chenin Blanc Viognier. And part of the reason that it is so affordable, and I'm going to make you pour that out, which is super sad, but if you want to taste this, but part of the reason that it is so affordable is that there is wonderful Chenin Blanc grown in the Lodi in various areas of the Lodi region of California, that just has so much character and so much flavor and is not super expensive. And then blending it with a little bit of Viognier, you basically get the acid and the apple of Chenin Blanc, and then you get kind of the richness of Viognier. So it's like Chardonnay in sort of in that family, but a lot more aromatic and a little bit more tropical and exotic.
Aromatic.
So really, really pretty. So talk about the Pine Ridge and their Napa Green recognition.
Yeah, so actually this is tied to our Rise Symposium. So this is another kind of special element of our upcoming Rise Symposium. And I don't know if I said it starts on April 29th, so it's coming right up here. We decided to offer these Rise Leadership Awards where people could apply for their leadership in a particular pillar. And we said only if you really stood out would we give an award. So there's not a guarantee that we're giving an award for every single pillar.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. So it's very selective. It's not like there's always going to be a first place winner.
We're not going to force it. Yeah. But we did find winners in all 6 categories this year.
Fantastic.
And Pine Ridge actually won for the water pillar. And that's actually because another thing that came out of Rise, can't help but bring it up, is we also facilitate mentorships. And so starting in 2022, we facilitated a mentorship between Dominus Estate, who was designed to be dry farmed, and Pine Ridge, who was interested in starting to explore dry farming.
Explain dry farming.
So dry farming really, we could go deeper, but dry farming is really important to understand that a farm has to be designed to be dry farmed from the beginning. So I think there's a misunderstanding. People think, why don't they all just turn off the irrigation and start dry farming? But really you have to be thinking about the soils, the orientation, the pruning, the root stock, all the super geeky stuff.
The density of the vines, like how much you have
the spacing
acre.
between the vines, all of that you have to be thinking about to create a dry farmed vineyard. And so Pine Ridge started thinking about it because they had some vineyards to redevelop. So then you can start thinking fresh.
Right.
How do I design this for dry farming?
Right.
And Todd helped them to start doing that. Todd Mastero is the director of viticulture at Dominus. And so they've now committed to, not only have they had huge success, they've been seeing really deep roots, to our earlier point, seeing the roots going deep for their water, more self-sustaining, not reliant on irrigation, of course.
Right.
They've now committed to every redeveloped vineyard being dry farmed.
Oh my gosh.
Forward.
That is definitely something to toast.
There's huge leadership there.
This is so
for a, I don't know, $15 bottle of wine.
Right? You're welcome. You're welcome. Because
it's a good one.
Seriously, like this is just, it's available in a lot of the great wine store chains like the Total Wines of the world.
Yeah.
I've seen it a million times on wine.com. I'd be surprised if they don't have it even this moment. But they also offer a pretty good case price of it from the winery itself.
Yeah.
It's sort of a, it's house wine level. I mean, maybe $15 is a little expensive for, your everyday wine, but it's not.
Sometimes it's less than that.
Exactly. And it's also got a screw cap, which makes it super convenient to, reclose in the refrigerator. And I will say, this is something people ask me all the time, especially Chenin Blanc-based wines. They hold up in the fridge for a very long time. Mm-hmm. You can drink this opened bottle over a week, and as long as you've stuck it back in their fridge after you pour that glass, it's going to be tasty. So that's just a really nice go-to.
Yeah.
They have incredible leadership. They've got Nicolas Quier, who's a very famous master of wine, as part of their leadership, and Alexis Walsh is their just like sort of, power forward, I'll say. So it's really, really cool to be celebrating them. And I saw that our congressman was there giving their viticulturist an award as well.
Yeah, so Gustavo Viña also just won a Community Climate Leaders Award, which I'll say I played a little role in recommending him for that.
Well,
so that was
you're
so
on the
wonderful
ground. You should be. That's a role you should be playing.
He's a huge leader and just also so genuine and down to earth and doesn't have a big ego. And I think that's huge in leadership. So that was great.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one thing that I think, now you were born and raised here, and
by and large,
some
little moves,
most of your life, and I've lived here in Napa Valley for 20 years, and I have to say that mostly it's true that our local heroes who are really committed, obviously, to wine quality, and we'll get to this with the red. Actually, better vineyards makes better tasting wine.
Yeah,
it really
quality
does.
Connection.
It really is. It's not just let's take care of the planet. Although I would put that over wine quality, to be honest, because we owe it to the future. We're just borrowing our little space right here for now, but it makes a difference for quality. But where was I going with that? Anyway, so
well, we got to think about that. Think about how this really does elevate and connect to quality.
Exactly.
And I think that's important to make that connection. It's not just about do-gooder.
Yeah.
This has a whole bunch of other potential benefits along the way.
And I know what I was going to say. It's this, and I think you're going to agree with me, that the major leaders of this type of stuff, like Gustavo, like Chandon, and the team there, and like the folks at Spotswood, I'll speak to that with Jordan on the other side of the hill, they're not running around like trumpeting their greatness.
No, sometimes I have to force it out of them. Come and talk about what you're doing, because you need to show other people what's possible. And sometimes it's hard to even get them to do it.
There's not some like neighborhood swagger of like, hey, I'm the big, great important vintner or sustainability leader, or just I got XYZ number of points on my wine. They're just in the trenches doing it.
Yeah.
Because the wine gains from that commitment. So super fun and exciting. So I wanted to show everybody. I want
to make sure we're going to talk about the other leadership award winner too.
Well, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that. So, we're getting. You mean?
Sorry, I'm like starting to run the show here.
No, I like it. I like it. That's how we get things done, is by people being good at what they do. But you're talking about Cliff, right?
Yes.
So I wanted to seg into that with a little bit of a discussion about other certifications.
She has a plan.
And so I wanted to just throw these up here. You're talking about the Leadership Award, and we'll speak to that. That's the Napa Green Leadership Award. But this winery, as with Spotswood, which we talked about, has a bunch of other commitments.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about specifically Certified B Corporation, because I think that that's something that people outside of the wine industry can resonate with, or they may have heard of. You may be an industry where you have your company does this, or somebody in your supply chain does this, or one of your customers is Certified B Corporation. Can you just explain a little bit about like what that entails?
Yeah, so for us too, in our certification, I can't not say, we have 6 elements of each of our vineyard and winery certifications, and the foundation is the people.
Yes.
Is caring for people.
So people,
it's
huge.
a huge part of our standards. B Corp really goes all the way on looking at your social practices and how you care for your people. So it's going kind of as deep as you can go in validating all of those social practices. It also looks at environmental practices, but its real focus is on those people, plus how you're caring for the planet as well.
Right.
And yeah, there's just a handful of wine industry folks right here that have it. It's really big in the Willamette, interestingly. There's like 8 or 9 wineries that have it up there, including Brooks was spoken at Rise as well.
Yes, Brooks. Janie Brooks Hoyt is a little bit like Beth Novak Milligan of the Napa Valley.
I actually told her that. I said, you two are counterparts.
She's like, if there's a certification that I can have, I'm going to have it. Actually, I put up there ecology because that's about planting trees to offset everything to do with packaging, especially when you're shipping out wine, because they're a small winery and mostly sell direct to consumer from their winery rather than to shops and restaurants, except for maybe in the local area, and then the top ones around, major resorts and major cities that have fine dining. So they don't want to feel, they want to offset the idea and the fact that, you're shipping and using packaging and stuff like that. And then we've got Sonoma County wine growers are doing their own form of certifications. And they've also got a new kind of they call it climate adaptation certification, which is very similar to some of the Napa Green stuff. 1% for the planet is something that a lot of companies do. If you buy Patagonia, you probably have noticed that on their food stuff.
It's not really a certification. It's not a certification. To give back 1% of your revenue.
1% of your revenue towards nonprofits that are planet health focused.
So we are a candidate to receive.
Yes, exactly. So send your 1% that way.
I have to say I can't not see that list and not talk about organic versus kind of whole systems.
Please do.
I can't not. I got to do it.
I think everybody thinks that organic is the be all and end all, and I think it's just the beginning.
It's just
the beginning basics, because basically it means no synthetic inputs.
Yes.
Okay.
So organic, what's organic is well known and it's easy to describe, which is it's easy to grasp, right? 6 pillars aren't your perfect elevator pitch.
No.
Whereas just saying don't use synthetic chemicals, right? That's easy to grasp. It's easy to get. It's easy to understand the health ramifications of that.
Right.
But it really is just one small piece of the puzzle.
And it doesn't mean
6-pillar puzzle.
And you don't have to be nice to people or worry necessarily about your energy.
You could have really heavy bottles. You
could
be using crazy energy. You could be using tons of water. You could not be caring for your people. You could have a lot of emissions, and you could be an organic producer.
Right.
So it's just so important to me to think whole system, think soil to bottle. We absolutely have a very rigorous prohibited and restricted pesticide list. We do not allow Roundup as of the end of this year with any of our members. We're the first sustainable wine growing certification to do that.
Yep.
Can't
it's
not
a
say.
Big commitment. Big commitment.
Yeah, but so
thank you, Napa Valley.
That's a really important element, but it's so important to think whole systems.
Yes.
And the other thing I'll say about that, because you're seeing this crazy list and going, oh my God, there's so many certifications.
All right, I'm going to show that list one more time.
And that's not, there's so many environmental certifications.
That's a tiny one, yes.
There's 7 sustainable wine growing programs in the U.S. alone. I think the thing there, though, I'm sorry to say there isn't a move to make just one grand certification, because we all have different priorities and we're very whole systems, very rigorous focused.
Right.
But I will say certification is critical, because it's a third-party validation that people are doing what they're saying they're doing.
Exactly.
Now, look at what that means, right? So for organic, you're validating not using chemicals. But
which is good.
It's that third-party saying for sure someone's not just making up that they're leaders, they're actually meeting a set of
what they call greenwashing, which is obviously it is a concern, because it looks really good to put your name on a philanthropy for a week, or it looks really good to say one particular thing. I think it's interesting though. I like the what you talked about, being whole systems. It's sort of like if you say, okay, well, I feed my kids nutritious food, but if you're not nice to them, right? So like going back
to... But they sleep outside.
Right. They sleep outside, and I constantly neglect their emotional well-being.
Yeah.
So everything going back to the systems thinking.
Yeah.
And if you just think about think about it as you as a person, you need way more than one of those things.
Yeah.
And so going back to the people piece in the B Corp, this is, if you think about it, it doesn't matter whether it's a church, a school, a family, a company. The best ones mainly focus on that. And if you focus on the people, then it really helos up very quickly to other things, because if you're using chemical inputs, that's probably putting the people at some risk.
Yeah.
We know that that's true about especially some of them. And if you're overusing even organic inputs like sulfur,
good point.
That's not good. So thinking about how do I if I can use create a healthy vineyard through other choices to where I can use less sulfur, even though it's organic, that's a good thing. And so that's to me a very, very big part of it.
It also hugely ties back to the bottom line.
Yes.
We talk a lot about when you take care of your people, you retain people.
Yes.
And those people build up a greater knowledge set.
Yes.
And if they feel heard and listened to and cared for, they're more likely to help innovate and bring you new ideas. Mm-hmm. They know those vines.
Yes.
Speaking of our industry, then they can catch things early. They can be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
So the money you can save, not having to rehire and retrain and rebuild that knowledge, is huge.
Right. And the money you can save when they say, oh, gosh, I had a flight attendant tell me that, 20 years ago at an airline they worked at, they pointed out a way to reduce the amount of extra backup water that was carried on board, and they saved gazillions of dollars in jet fuel.
Yeah, it weighs a lot.
But they wouldn't, that's something that only a flight attendant might have noticed, because they're in the trenches doing that. And when somebody has a stakeholder mentality in the success and the well-being of everybody and everything, it's a win. And that institutional knowledge, to your point about not having to rehire. And then when you do hire that new person in, everybody else is such a great role model. That the person is going to be their best self every day, because they'll be so motivated and uplifted. So
it's a perfect transition to talking
Leadership
about Cliff
Award.
Family.
Let's do it. This is so fun. And I love Laura Barrett. She's a great
I
winemaker there.
just gave her a hug.
She's such a good gal. Speaking of somebody that just does not sing her own praises, but is just cranking.
Yeah, so don't worry, folks. We're not walking through all 6 Leadership Award winners, but we're talking about 2 of them today. And Cliff Family is another Leadership Award winner, and they won for their supply chain leadership.
This is huge.
So it's all interconnected, right? I will say, too, they've won awards for their community leadership. They take care of their employees so deeply. People never want to leave Cliff Family. I was just talking to someone about how they never want to leave working for Cliff Family.
Yeah.
But we're talking about their supply chain leadership. And I love that I was just talking to their head of operations, and she said, that this award actually came out of Rise 2 years ago. Oh. She said, I was sitting there listening to all the content, and I decided we had to innovate and we had to push on our packaging and we had to do better. Did you hear about this?
I remember this. No, I remember this. I remember talking to the attendee about being inspired by this, because I was in the audience at that one.
Yes. And so what they did was they went and did a full scope 3 inventory, which means you're looking at your emissions from all the really hard to track stuff, namely the packaging, the distribution, travel, all of that
stuff
kind
that's
of
not
stuff.
your direct operational stuff to
and
make
hard
your
to
product.
Track, but they went all in. That's the hardest part of your emissions to track, but they went in and they did it. And they figured out where could we start saving, and they did a whole number of things. So yes, they lightened their glass weight, but you might have noticed when she opened this, it didn't have a capsule.
Exactly. Why put something on the bottle that's just going to end up in the trash?
Yeah, I have to tell you, almost no capsules are recyclable, only pure tin or pure aluminum. And even still, getting those recycled, you have to go through a lot of extra effort to get them recycled.
Yes.
And they determined, you know what, we don't feel like this still has use. It used to be intended to keep rats out of your wine in the cellar. Not a lot of people still have that issue, the drunk rats. So they decided they didn't need that anymore and they got rid of it. And you have to think all of these things reduce footprint, reduce mining in that case.
Yes.
And manufacturing and transport, lightening the glass weight. They also looked at, I don't know how well anyone knows Cliff Family, but they're obsessed with cycling. It's like part of their entire
another
identity.
great place to visit when you're in Napa Valley. Go to Velo Vino. They've got the coolest food truck right outside. And then the tasting room vibe is just so great. You've got indoor and outdoor seating. Again, with lots of affordable options. You can go fancy if you want, but and you'll see the bike outside, so you'll know where you're at.
But they had a few wines. These are just like, you think about, you get in depth with things. They had a few wines that had this big metal cog on it, like it was just part of the kind of display.
the sprocket of the bike.
Yes. But they had some that had like a full applique.
Right.
And they realized we can't keep doing that.
Yeah.
And so they figured out how to just do a gorgeous screen printed version of
on the fancy one.
On those fancy ones.
Yeah.
And get rid of that. So there's more than that, but those were they kind of did an integrated set of things. And here's the great news if you're in the industry. They're like, oh, are customers gonna notice? Are they not gonna like it?
Right.
And people loved it. They got no negative response, and especially using it as a storytelling tool, people were like, oh, I love this. This is awesome. Yeah. This is part of your ethos.
Yes.
I'm into it.
Exactly.
So that's part of why they won that award.
Well, and I think that's really powerful because if you are into cycling, that means that you are really into time spent outdoors in beautiful places. Yeah. And they're not going to stay that way if you're not taking good care and being intentional about all of the things that can make a big difference. So this is their Zinfandel Valle de Soto estate. So they have a beautiful estate in the Oak Knoll district of Napa Valley. So just a little bit south of Yountville. Well, encompassing Yountville. Actually, I don't know exactly what.
Exactly. I think it's south of Yountville.
Mostly south of Yountville. I think you think of Trefethen is sort of in the heart of it.
Right, same area.
Another great place to visit, one of our historic wineries.
Another leader in sustainability.
Yeah, another huge leader in sustainability. So, and wonderful, the whole gamut between super intense collectibles, but also affordable. And I will say that their Chardonnay, their basic Chardonnay that gained fame in 1978 when they won a global Chardonnay challenge against French white Burgundies, which are 100% Chardonnay and kind of the benchmark style on which Chardonnay is based. That wine, even though it's still relatively affordable as Chardonnay wines that from classic regions go, it ages 20 years easily. Easily. Yeah. So even though you can drink it now, and that's what most people do, I would just say, if you were looking for a wine under $100 for the birth year of your child, it will make it to 21, no problem. So you should check that out. But let's go back to this one. So Valle de Soto, their estate, they're just doing incredible vineyard work there for water use reduction and soil health and all of that stuff. Yeah. It's a big.
I wish I had a photo. They're organic. They're very regenerative. There's a photo Laura showed at an event we had where they took a picture of their vineyard. It's just beautiful, green, all this diversity, flowers covered up. And she turned the phone to their neighboring vineyard, and it was just bare. And it couldn't be more stark. The contradiction could not be more stark. Do you want life, or do you want
dead soil?
I mean,
exactly. And that's not, if you think about what the planet does when left to its own devices, it is obviously just a cacophony of creatures and plants, right? And that's what we want, because that's how the planet
nature
takes
is never
care of
monoculture.
itself.
Sorry.
No, and she knows what she's doing. So this is their Zinfandel. It is a signature variety for them. They do such a great job with Zin. And I will say, for people who like Zinfandel, this is not one of the big monster, highly over extracted ones. It has that lusty richness and density on the palate that you're looking for in Zinfandel, but it is not big and tannic as well. So
it's really lovely.
What we say in the master sommelier world when we're trying to identify them blind is there elements of a little bit of blue fruit, so like blueberries, but also some wild blue fruits like boysenberry and that kind of thing, and mulberry. But then also there's a little bit of a kick of light brown spices at the end. And I promised, as I was posting about on social about this, that we would do a red wine with fish pairing. And I was at Pebble Beach Food and Wine that weekend. Thank you, Linda, for last weekend for pointing that out. And I had this crazy pairing. I had a glass of from the cellar event. Everything was an older wine, and the oldest wine of the tasting was 1988.
Nice.
Beaulieu Vineyards, George de la Tour Private Reserve Cabernet. And then I walked by this table that had canned tuna, but it was a joke. Everything was in a little recyclable tin, metal tin, but it was the most extraordinary, like just pristine, shiny, glistening gossamer. I think it was like ahi tuna you've ever seen, kind of done as like a sashimi style, but then with some nice little bit of just microgreens and other little bits of seasoning, and I think like a kind of a crunchy, flaky salt. I had this fish with this Cabernet, and it was amazing.
Interesting.
So I decided, hey,
not an expected pairing,
we're going to do a little bit of a red wine with fish pairing. So dig in, unless
you won't be surprised when I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I'll let you know.
From you.
I will let you know.
I'm sort of tempted. But.
I bet you are. Oh, okay. What am I going to do? Say I did a crap job of this food?
Oh, my cooking.
What I did here was, this is shrimp, and then I basically just took a sheet pan and spread chorizo from the casing on the bottom.
Interesting.
Threw the shrimp on top and broiled it all until it was browned and cooked through.
Interesting.
So you get the spice.
That's got a lot of flavor, it sounds like.
And when it comes, it's sort of like the Spanish tapa, which is gambas and the Spanish tapa of chorizo mixed together. And they either serve those in Spain with sherry or red wine. So let's see.
I'm thinking about sherry. Did it work?
Oh, hell. Heck. Really, really, really. That's a must, I will say. Wow. Delicious. And for people who are wondering about shrimp, if you like it, always buy it frozen. If you see it in the store, unless you live in the Gulf, in which case, and it came off the boat, then go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Pay up for it. But otherwise, at the fishmonger, typically, it will have come in frozen and they will have been thawed for you. Just buy it frozen. They'll be happy to sell it to you that way, because that's, gonna get to you in better shape whenever you are ready to cook it. And so I buy it on sale when it's frozen.
She has a plan.
I have a plan to save money. So we've talked a lot about the various types of certification sustainability initiatives. If you were to sort of give people some advice on how to think about it or what to look for, what's the low-hanging fruit for how people can vote with their wallets and with their voices in terms of talking to friends and influencing them? Yeah. What can they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the number one thing I always say is you have purchasing power.
Right.
To your point.
Right.
So use your purchasing power. Now, I'll admit our industry needs to get better about giving quick cues. Like, none of y'all are probably going to spend 30 minutes digging through a website to determine the leadership. So we do need more wines to have a quick logo on the label or a statement on the label that makes it quick and easy for a consumer to say, I'm not quite sure what B Corp means, but I know they're doing something good, and I'm going to grab that one instead of that one. But do look out for those things, because they are there.
Yeah.
Some people are doing that. That cue is there. Even on other products in the supermarket, you're seeing it more and more. Not just organic, but regenerative.
Or it's like when you go to the coffee place and it says fair trade. I don't know how good that is, fair trade coffee or chocolate, but I do think that at least that is something. It's something. It's something attached to people and paying a proper price for the product to the farmer. Yeah. And then if that farmer makes enough of a living, then it's, first of all, everyone is benefited if people are stable economically. There's no other way about it. It doesn't not matter that it's not you, because it matters to you. Yeah. And just be selfish on that front.
Yeah. The other big thing I will say to do, is ask questions, especially if you go wine tasting.
Yeah.
Ask questions. And that might end up being a learning journey for you both, because the person on the other side of the counter might say, I knew we're Napa Green. I'm not quite sure what it means. But now that someone asked, I'm going to go check and make sure. Or you're going to find people that know a lot and they're so happy to talk about it. And then what I eventually hear through the grapevine is, people care about this. I'm getting asked questions, and it amplifies that this matters to you, and then it amplifies other people doing more. So ask questions, and don't be afraid to, it might seem like a stupid question, but there's no stupid questions.
No,
ask questions.
I agree. I think people do want to be asked, and curiosity is part of being a human, right? Caring and being curious. It's something that's special to our species, and so go ahead and let it be a part of life being a little bit more interesting and discoverable. And just remember that it always is going to, any of these sustainability efforts, even if it's, and it's weird to say just organic, but we talked about that it's only one little tiny slice, is going to benefit the people in that area. And that's of enormous importance. I think there's nothing more important. And of course, the planet is what keeps all of us sustained. So if we're not taking care of her, then we're not taking care of ourselves, and that's our job for today and for future generations. So thank you.
Thank you. This was a fun and easy conversation. I hope it was fun and easy for you.
Yeah, I think so. And this is just, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm very, very glad. For those of you who tune in, please tell anybody that you know that didn't get to see it live to check out the recording. I'll just quickly say thank you and toast to your
Happy Earth Month.
Thank you. Happy Earth Month. And please go buy one of these wines and celebrate Earth Month with your neighbors and tell them what you learned. And we will be coming next episode. We will be going on the road. I will be visiting Decant Napa Valley, the wine shop. I've talked a lot about great places to visit here where you can have a great experience. This might be the best kept secret. It's not all Napa Valley wines. It's a lot of world wines, but man, you can go there and have the coolest vibe out experience of tasting of all kinds of stuff. It's my dear friend and longtime colleague from back in the Windows on the World days, Jillian Balance, and another great sommelier. Jillian is a master sommelier, and another great sommelier, Cara Patricia. They're the proprietors of the shop with their colleague, and we will be there live. This will be my first time on the road, so it'll be Sunday, May 4th, 4:30. They will be inviting some of their local VIPs, so make sure you become one really quickly if you want to be in the studio audience. And we will be tasting and pairing, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and happy Earth Month to all of you. Cheers.